welcome back, everyone, to another season of Town Talk. This is season 2, folks. We've arrived, and we've kicked off the new year with episode 1. And who better to do that with than our very own Mayor, Duane Crocker. Mayor, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to kick off season 2, so I'm excited. Thanks.
Absolutely. So, of course, we're kind of in February, but it still feels like there's a lot of new stuff happening this year. And so what I wanted to kind of get from you is cast the vision for the year as we kind of proceed further on along into 2026. But starting with something very new, speaking of new, that you've headed up. And so that is the Growing Victoria Summit. So tell us about it. How did it come to be? What is it?
Sure.
Give us a preview.
Yeah. So, just a little bit of background, we obviously have identified over the course of the last year and a half, a need for Victoria to grow. I mean, just from a tax base, we need more jobs, we need, those types of things. And so, really kind of building on that or to address that, we started a Growing Victoria, initiative, if you will. And I think at my State of the City that I gave in 2024, we were really just kind of rolling that out,
right.
That has gotten legs under it, is moving along. We've, obviously tried to reach out through that program to outside retail that's coming in. I think we've seen some success with that, with some of the new retailers, outlets that are coming in. And we're building on that success, not only continuing that, but also we've added a new position that's really going to be focused on not necessarily bringing in outside folks or outside business, but business retention of and expansion of businesses we have in Victoria,
right.
So that we can better kind of serve our existing businesses and say, hey, what do you need from the city? How can we help you grow? How can we help you add employees, add to your facility, those sort of things.
Right.
So, all of that's very exciting. And so, it's kind of funny, but the State of the City is typically in the past had been done as part of an address to the Chamber of Commerce.
Sure.
Going back to Mayor McCoy, I guess 2 mayors before me now, he really kind of upped the game, if you will, a little bit on the State of the City, and kind of made it a little bit bigger production. I don't know if that's
that's a good word.
A bigger
he
event,
did.
And really wanted to highlight the city, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
That carried on then with Mayor Bachnight behind me, and then in 2024. I did the same thing,
right.
and as part of that chamber event. Fast forward then, we have these Growing Victoria Initiative ideas out there, and we're kind of kicking around some different things and about what that looks like. And I remember this because I remember the conversation. Mr. Garza, our city manager, Jesus, had been somewhere. I don't remember where it was. He was out for a few days. I think he was at a conference or something like that. And so we hadn't chatted in a while. And, I kind of had this concept and this idea. And I said, when he gets back in town and we, are catching up, I'm going to throw this out there. Well, he came back, our first conversation. In fact, I think he called me in the vehicle on the way back. And it was weird because through that conversation, I said, hey, I had this thought. And he goes, okay, I had a thought too. We had both had the same thought about why don't we do kind of a conference or a summit about growth and what that looks like and, what we can do in Victoria to kind of get everybody on the same page. We have both kind of independently had that thought. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, this needs to happen.
Meant to be.
Yeah, this needs to happen. And so we really started putting some pieces together. Okay, what is this going to look like?
Right.
What are we going to talk about? What do we want to do? We had already been kind of talking about the state of the city because my take on the state of the city was that I wanted it to be for the city. I wanted it to be for the citizens, not just for a individual group.
Right.
And I also wanted it to be more than just come in, have a meal, let's chat about what's going on. All right, see you next year.
Right.
I really wanted something to come out of it that maybe would move the needle, if you would. So through those conversations and kind of that perception in my mind about what I wanted to do going forward in this, we we've kind of melded those. And so that's a long-winded background to say all of those efforts are now coming together in what we're calling the Growing Victoria Summit.
Right.
And that's going to be set for March the 12th. It's going to be at the community center. And basically, we're going to have a couple of different panels, and then we're going to include in that summit the State of the City address.
Love it.
That I will give. Yeah. And kind of try to, put some of the pieces together on that.
Right.
One of the big things I wanted to do through this summit was really provide a platform for education. Education is huge. It's so important.
Right.
Not only just to the viability of a community, but to the growth of a community.
Right.
And really, I wanted to give our local educational institutions a platform and to basically say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's why what we do is important. Here's how education ties to growth. And here's what we need from the community to help us. I want them to explain, here's what we're putting in, and here's what we'd like to help, like from you guys to help us move this forward. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to be, a big piece of this. We have committed to be a part of that panel. President Hardigree from A&M Victoria, Dr. Jennifer Kent from Victoria College, Superintendent Collazo from VISD, and John Gilley from St. Joseph High School, kind of representing the private schools.
Right.
Really just kind of a education from K to doctorate programs in Victoria. And then our former House of Representative member, Jeannie Morrison, is going to be our moderator for that panel.
Great.
And of course, Jeannie has such a huge heart for education and background. She served on higher education committee when she was in the legislature for a number of years, and she jumped at the chance. And so really excited about that. Really, I want that to be a big focus of what we're doing.
That's a superstar lineup right there.
I'll tell you, that'll be a tough act to follow for anybody.
I know it. Then that's just one aspect of it, right, Mayor? You've
Correct.
got maybe some even special experts that are going to be coming on speaking about economic development and kind of what other cities do with that and speaking to the science behind it. So I'm really looking forward to just the entire event. So very excited to be a part of that. So thanks for thinking about that for our community.
I'm excited. And my goal is I realize that, listen to a couple of panels and listen to a State of the City for me is not going to be a silver bullet. Right. We're not going to wake up the day after and everything's going to be fine. But what my goal in this is to really to start a conversation about growth.
Right.
Start a conversation about, what can each of us do? I want everybody walking out the door with at least some sense of, hey, here's something I can do to help this aspect of something that's important for growth of Victoria.
Right.
Whether it's, we're inviting across the board any and all, this is open to the public. It's a free event. Now you have to pre-register.
Yep.
It's a free event, but we've reached out to various organizations, nonprofits, the chamber, obviously, VEDC, city and county elected officials, commissions, and then also through this and through social media, just to the general public to say, hey, this is an event that we want people to come to because it is important for the entirety of our city.
Right.
And so we're pretty excited about that. But through that, we hope to start a conversation and kind of give folks an idea of here's what we can do to kind of move things forward. Right.
I love that. And in case anyone's listening to this and they're planning to attend, you did say register. So here's the website. We're going to throw it up on the screen too. It's growingvictoriatx.com. So www.growingvictoriatx.com. And that helps us just to get the right catering amount. We're going to have food. It's a free event, folks. So, why not? Why not attend and be a part of the future of Victoria and its future growth?
Right.
It's very important. And also learn. There's a lot of questions, Mayor, as you know, as the PIO, Public Information Officer, in case you don't know the abbreviation for those listening, we get a lot of questions.
Sure.
Concerns, complaints, all the things. A lot of pros, too. We get to talk directly with our residents about what's going on in the community. But a lot of that lack of understanding, the context, the why, the history even of why things came to be. So I'm very much looking forward to you guys answering those questions through this summit.
Well, we hope to address those questions. And in fact, when you go to pre-register, there's a few questions that we have posed on there that we want people to answer to give us some feedback.
Right.
That just kind of ask questions about their ideas of growth, their concept of growth. What do they think is our strong points? What is our weak points?
Right.
The goal of that being to have some information walking into the event that we can actually say, okay, here's, this many people think this is the issue. And so we can talk about that issue because we really want to address questions that people may have about what's going on, what are we doing, why is this a limiter, and ultimately, what can we then do, whatever hurdle there is, whatever limiter there is, how do we get past it? What do we do? And so some of that information up front, we hope to really kind of weave into the information that we want to give to answer those very types of questions.
Right.
So we really want this to be for the community and be very community-based. It'll be very local-based and really address these are concerns of our citizens. These are the questions they have. Let's address those and talk about how do we come together and move forward.
Yeah. And just to summarize some of those questions, Mayor, that I think you and I and other city staff see a lot is why this business, not that one? Why support retail recruitment but not small business? And that's so, and you just answered it a second ago, we support it all. Retail recruitment, that's part of our city's economic development director's position. But within her department, like you said, the new business and retention and expansion manager also is there to support and facilitate small businesses here in the community. So some of those questions I personally see, and people just don't know that the city doesn't determine who comes here. It's a free market.
Right.
The businesses determine who come here, and we should support them. That's one thing I personally always want to say is when you have a new business wanting to invest in your community, our community of Victoria, we got to wrap our arms around them and say, welcome.
Sure.
We want to show that we are a welcoming community of new development. Right?
Right.
So that more could latch onto that.
Absolutely.
We can build some momentum to your point about growing Victoria.
Yeah. And you got to remember, we're in competition with every other city, every other town, in the state of Texas.
Right.
There's a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And so, from the standpoint of growth, then you want to be able to provide those people with information, with assistance, where you can. One of the big things we do, when people talk about, well, why this restaurant and not that restaurant? One of the conceptions that I think we've seen, and I think where our economic development staff, in-house does a great job, is clearing up some misconceptions that people may have when they pick up a map sitting in some other state somewhere and go, well, this is a town of, 65,000 people, 60,000 people. What they don't realize and what we help them see through discussions is that we are a town of that size or a city of that size, but we serve a much larger area.
Right.
Lots of folks from Cuero, Hallisville, Goliad, Refugio, drive to Victoria every day. They work here, and so they're here. They eat in the restaurants. They shop here. And so we really can show, hey, there's a much larger customer base than just, well, they don't hit this box, so they're out.
Right.
I laugh. I have a mayor's youth council, made up of high school kids that want to learn more about government. And the question they always ask is, why can't we get Chipotle back?
Is that the one? I hear that, and I hear Luby's, I hear Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
We have a whole podcast episode on that. But anyway,
well, apparently for high school kids, it's Chipotle.
We just need to make an episode on that one.
Right.
Not our decision at the end of the day.
No, that's 100%.
They're looking at market data, like you said, potential traffic area, which I think Danielle had said the retail recruitment area of Victoria from those other communities ends up being 120,000 in a given day.
Right.
High traffic periods of the day and the week. And so that's potential business that these businesses are looking for. So they make their decisions. We support them. Hopefully you can too if you're listening.
There you go.
But that leads me to our next question that I wanted to ask you, Mayor, and hopefully, new year, new season of things. What's in the budget? We're talking about growing Victoria, and there's so many facets. We said retail recruitment, small business retention, but there's so many other facets and pillars that I know you're going to have some experts come and speak to. You mentioned education, and that is a whole other, facilitating the future workforce in itself.
Right.
But all of this is to help grow our tax base so that we can put it back into our community and its services, like our public safety, for example,
right.
Like our streets and parks. So I know you're passionate about that. You wanted to talk about a few areas of improvement that we have coming up in this year's budget. So can you tell us a little bit about what we've got on this year's agenda?
Sure.
What's coming?
So, I'll hit some high-level details or high-level projects, and more details will obviously be part of the State of the City address that we're going to give at the summit. But, obviously the public safety headquarters, I think everybody who's driven down that part of Main Street can't miss it.
Everyone is talking about it.
It's a fantastic facility, well-deserved by not only, our citizens, but our first responders, municipal corps. They do such a great job. And so we're excited about that. I believe the ribbon cutting for that is February 25th.
You got it.
Okay.
February 25th.
Yeah. And so that'll be an event open to the public. I think it's that morning.
It is. It's 10 a.m.
I think it's 10 o'clock.
You know what?
Yeah,
Don't listen to me. We're going to throw it up on the screen. Look at the graphic. I'm pretty sure it's 10. But anyway, 2525 North Main Street.
Yep.
And that was kind of ironic and intentional because I think it had something to do with the year that it was being debuted.
There you go.
Something like that.
Well,
anyway,
I don't know.
Or not debuted, but worked on. Something like that. Jesus can tell you.
Fair enough.
But yeah.
So so we're looking forward to that event, so that'll be, kind of wrap up that project. The other big project, obviously, that people are interested in was the subject of the vote last year, and that is the venue tax vote, and that is a community center project that was made possible because that was approved by the voters. So that project is ongoing in terms of really kind of our design and planning phase. What we did was after once we found out, yes, we're going to be able to get the venue tax, and that's going to support some of the costs of this. So we kind of went back and re-engaged with stakeholders, those that use the community center for events and things of that nature, particularly with the livestock show being an example. And we said, okay, we've kind of talked about some concepts and we have some preliminary. Let's get down to brass tacks here. This is going to become real, so let's make sure we get this right. So that was really the goal. And from that process, or in visiting with them, we are going to implement some design changes, primarily in location of the rodeo arena. Originally, it was supposed to be, or it was designed originally to be behind the dome, if you will.
Okay. We're
going to actually slide around to the side. So that it has an entrance also, just like the community center, it faces North Street. One of the reasons for that is that it opens up some space in the back that would allow for some other type show barns and arenas and that sort of thing that the livestock show was really, really wanting, and said, hey, this will make this even better for us and more usable for us. Last thing we wanted to do was spend a whole bunch of money putting together a building, putting together a facility that wasn't usable by the people that use it, right? And so that process is ongoing,
Awesome.
So we're making those changes, of course, looking at materials cost and, figuring out,
all right,
how do we make this work? And so more to come on that, but that is still in the works.
Awesome.
So.
How about some parks? What's going on?
Yeah, no, we have over the last several years really kind of put a focus on parks improvements, kind of, taking smaller parks and going in and doing, just give them a facelift and putting some stuff in there. So that will continue. One of the projects, I think, is the Guy Grant Trail that will connect to our other walking trail. We were able to get a grant for that through Texas Parks and Wildlife that's going to support that. Or actually, I take it back. I think it was through TxDOT. I'm sorry. It was through TxDOT, that grant. That's going to help support that. We have Ted B. Reed Park. We're putting in a walking trail there, and so that'll be a really cool improvement to that. And then in terms, so those are things that I think you're going to see kind of coming to fruition fairly shortly. We have other plans that we're working on, that'll be, kind of in the queue, so to speak.
Right.
We've got the kayak put in an outtake facility there in the park, on the river.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at that design process. I think Meadow Lane Park is part of it. We're looking at MLK Park, kind of what we can do, kind of preliminary design ideas for it. And just, really looking at, okay, we got to keep our parks up because,
right.
I mean, it's a great amenity for our people. And of course, our crown jewel is Riverside Park, but we got to take care of some of our other ones as well. So
earlier you had mentioned too, Children's Park, right? Some improvements being made over there.
Yes. Actually, so we received a grant through the Marsha Shanklin Foundation that gave a grant for a sizable grant for a new water facility. And so that's going to be an ongoing project to go in and put that in. And I think that'll start in this coming year, if I'm not mistaken.
So I'm using my cheat sheet here.
Oh, good.
So it looks like the design is projected to be completed in the first quarter of 2026. You're right. With construction projected to begin fiscal year 2026 and continued next year in 27.
There we go.
And Marsha Shanklin Foundation did contribute a $1.5 million project with contributions of $553,000 from the Marsha Shanklin. So they contributed $553,000 of that total project cost.
Right. And what a generous donation.
Yeah.
And, just again,
absolutely.
A heart for our city, a heart for our kids, and we can't thank them enough for their support.
Absolutely. And it looks like they're going to construct a splash pad and replace play structures at the park too. So that's always big for us. I know everyone's always looking forward during the summertime for the splash pads. I have 2 little ones too, so anytime we hear of anything like that, it definitely enhances livability for us. So definitely appreciate it.
And that was 100%. They said if we're giving this money, we want it's for a splash pad, and we said, all right, let's make it work.
Perfect. So the more the merrier. I'm telling you, we look forward to that as parents over here with little ones. Keep them busy.
I get it.
You said Ted B. Reed Park earlier, and that's where Texas Parks and Wildlife Department did contribute a grant to that.
Okay.
It looks like it says they included $312,570, which $62,000 of which was in city funds. So there you go.
There we go. Yeah. And that'll be a great addition to that park, over on the north side, and just kind of, it'll be a walking trail around the entire perimeter of the park itself. So I think that'll be a nice addition.
Mm-hmm. What about streets? That's always a highly anticipated one.
Absolutely. Everybody wants to talk about streets.
Everyone wants to talk about those.
And I get it. I totally get it. So our total capital improvement plan is about $79 million overall. Okay, but that includes all sorts of things. Utilities, infrastructure, boring stuff like erosion control. All of those sort of things are wrapped up in there. So streets, I'm going to use my cheat sheet a little bit now. So streets right now for residential streets is a little over $17 million. That's in the budget. We just awarded the Bon Air subdivision project to go in and redo those streets, so that'll be done. We've got just our regular street maintenance program that we do on an ongoing basis, to kind of help streets live longer, if you will, before we have to go.
Good way to put it.
And that's going to be 6.52 miles, which I believe is going to put us over our 112-mile goal for a 5-year period.
Very nice.
Yeah, we're excited about that. And then, we've got drainage projects, which nobody cares about until it rains. But
until it rains.
They're huge. They're really important.
Yep.
And this drainage project over at Lone Tree Acres, is really kind of important from the standpoint that it's going to make some property, going back to growing Victoria, it's going to make some properties over there that really kind of have some drainage issues right now. It's going to make them marketable because this is going to fix some of those drainage issues and really kind of open up some of those undeveloped properties for development. Because that's really kind of, another little sneak peek into what you might hear at the summit is let's talk about, hey, we've got some property it's already existing in the city, that we already have infrastructure in front of. Let's build on it. Let's figure out what we can do to utilize that property.
Right.
You know,
make it feasible for attractive to developers.
100%
to utilize. That's great.
Yeah. And so, you know, that's some of those, and then all the ways, you know, our thoroughfare street projects. Those are kind of the big streets. You know, we've talked before about Guy Grant. That is still ongoing. You know, we've got design coming, and I anticipate that we'll get to that one in 27 in terms of the actual construction, but design is underway. That's a big project, obviously. And then also North Street.
Yep,
you know,
that is the number one question we always get. We'll celebrate one street, Mayor, being worked on at this very moment, and I guarantee you in the comments thread we're going to get, what about North Street?
Yep.
Well, guys, it's in the design phase.
100%.
Get excited.
So that's I've described it as an elephant that you eat a bite at a time. You know, North Street starts at 5 points and goes all the way to the community center, and it all needs work. You know, preliminary numbers on that are very, very high. And so we're just going to take a piece at a time. Part of this is going to be we're going to have to do a little bit of right-of-way work, but we want to add sidewalks. And, you know, if we're going to go in and do it, let's do it right. Let's do it the right way. If you're going to add sidewalks, what better place to start than in front of a school, right? And so our first phase of the North Street, you know, mothership project, if you will, is going to be that phase there by Patty Welder.
Perfect.
And so that we can, you know, kind of start there, and then we'll just, you know, work our way through and do what we can when we can on the rest of it. But, you know, those are Guy Grant and North Street were the two streets that council really said, you know, this can's been kicked down the road so many times because they're such big projects. Eventually we got to do it. Why not us? Let's make it happen. Let's go do it. So that's what we're doing.
Respect to you guys, because that's a lot of money. And, you know, a lot of people tend to say, well, why not work on all the streets in a given year? We work on a limited budget. We are not like the federal government. So we can only afford to do so much in 1 year. So we just got to keep that in mind. Right.
And then, you know, some other streets. I mean, I'm looking down the list here that I brought. Let's see. We got Ball Airport. We're going to do a mill and overlay there. Lone Tree, Hanselman Road, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Wandlin, South Bend Jordan, Meori Lane. So, you know, there's quite a few projects, you know, that
quite a bit.
That are going to be part of our, you know, kind of maintenance and repair budget for this year. So those thoroughfare streets are about $8.5 million. So, you know, overall, there's a lot of infrastructure work going in. But again, you know, this infrastructure work does a couple of things. Number one is it improves livability, right? That's what we're all about, you know, livability for our citizens. But the other thing it does, getting back to, I know I keep harping on it, but it's such a big point right now that we need to grow. Infrastructure supports growth.
It does.
I mean, 100%. You know, you have good streets, you have drainage. That sets up a piece of property for development. It sets up for expansion. It just does so many things. And so that's what we're working toward. But again, if North Street's an elephant, I don't know what you'd call, you know, all the other infrastructure, but it's a lot. It's a lot. But we're doing what we can where we can and just trying to, you know, move the needle towards growth.
Right. And, you know, I attend all of the city council meetings, or at least watch if I can attend. And as part of, you know, just observing what you guys are working toward alongside city manager's office, you look at the budget and you learn along the years just how limited we are in funds. And as residents, you know, you can catch one of these flyers, by the way, by visiting our office or our website. That's what we've been looking at. But you learn that we are operating on a limited amount of funding each year. And not all funding is created equal. Some projects can only, you know, be pulled from this fund.
Right.
Some projects from the general fund. And so as you learn that, you realize we really are restricted each year as to just what amount of projects we can work on. And so I just wanted to say, you know, thank you guys, you and council and Jesus, all the staff who work to improve the community, the livability of our community through streets, through infrastructure, through growth. And this summit is going to be a huge part of that. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
I hope so.
Absolutely. Well, Mayor, is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, you know, I think we've kind of hit some highlights. Again, you know, really want to encourage people, get online, sign up for the summit. There's a little, I think there's a QR code that'll take you straight into the registration. I really think that This is a step in the right direction to start a conversation. And again, I don't pretend that this is the golden ticket to the Willy Wonka factory. It's going to fix everything. But, I think we do need to start talking as a community about, hey, what are we doing that's right? What can we do better? Yeah. How do we advance this? Because growth is, it keeps your community viable. Right. And if you're not growing, somebody else is.
Right. So true.
And you're going to get left behind. And so we've got to stay in the game and stay in the race. And whether Victoria County, the city of Victoria, we're competing with other counties and other cities for the same manufacturing jobs, for the same facilities, for the same retail. And so we've got to put our best foot forward and say, hey, this is why you should come to Victoria. Yeah. Here's what we can do for you. We want you here. What can we do to help? And I think really that's the attitude we need to have towards folks that are looking to come to Victoria, either to establish a business, to, anything from a small business all the way through an industrial plant that's going to have, 500 jobs, whatever it is. We need to say, what can we do to help? How can we make Victoria the place that you want to be? And start having real honest conversations amongst ourselves in Victoria about, are we doing that? And if we're not, how can we start that? And how do we get better at what we're trying to do?
Right. Yeah. And every person counts.
Absolutely.
So I love it. The key message there is growing Victoria, and hopefully everyone can be unified in how we go about that and at least be on board and how to support it. So looking forward to it.
If you're not helping, you're hurting. So
yes, that's right. So help us. Thank you again, Mayor. Really appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me on, Ashley. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Town Talk. Check out future episodes at victoriatx.gov/towntalk, or of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Spotify account. Make sure you hit that notification button to be sure that you get alerted instantly when our new episodes debut. You don't want to get behind, you want to stay informed, so make sure you do that. We appreciate your support, couldn't do it without you. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.